And to discuss this further, I'm joined in the studio by Eva Savelsberg. She's the chairperson of the European Centre for Kurdish Affairs, and by Enes Bayrakli. He is an assistant professor at the Turkish German University. He's also the director for European Studies at SETA. Eva, let's begin with you. You've just arrived from Berlin. Give us a sense of, as we saw in the report, of the extent of the PKK's operations, not only in Berlin and Germany, but all across Europe.
Well, actually, one must say that the PKK and their different organizations are probably the most important organization, Kurdish organization in Europe. This is due to the fact, partly, of course, that many Kurds from Turkey are living in Germany. I think we have about 1 million Kurds in Germany, and only in Berlin around 100,000. So as the PKK is very strong in Turkey, it's of course also very strong in Germany, where a lot of Kurdish migrants live.
Turkey's point of view has been that this is not a Kurdish issue, this is a PKK issue, an issue that relates to terrorism. And Turkey also says, Enes, that European countries haven't cracked down hard enough on the PKK. What are Turkey's expectations from Europe?
I think what Turkey expects is a clear distinction between the Kurds and the PKK. PKK, it is a terrorist organization, and the Kurds are an ethnic group who have different problems in different countries, and all these problems can be solved through political means and dialogue. And that's what Turkey really expects from its European allies in the first place. The second issue is with the PKK and its activities in Europe. PKK has a wide network all around Europe. PKK has its own media organs in Europe. It's recruiting militants from Europe, sending them to northern Iraq and Syria to fight against Turkey. And they are killing Turkish soldiers, Turkish civilians in Turkey, carrying out attacks, suicide attacks in Turkish cities. And at the same time, PKK is also collecting donations and extorting money from the Kurdish businessmen. And all these activities are going on in Europe around in the last 30 years or so, and there was really never a real serious crackdown on these activities.
Now, this is exactly what the PKK's co-founder that we interviewed in Europe in our special report has said. Let's take a look and listen to what the PKK's co-founder says about exactly what you're talking about, Enes.
The PKK appointed a person in each city in Europe and said to them, "You will receive a monthly contribution from every person under our control. This is the tax."
Eva, as we heard from a former member of the PKK living in Germany right now, what is this tax that he's talking about? Is it a protection tax?
Well, actually, it's kind of a protection tax, yes. You have to imagine that there are a lot of businessmen in Kurdish businessmen in Berlin, for example, and at least once a year someone from the PKK passes by, and when this person comes, the businessman, for example, someone selling even someone selling vegetables and making money with that, this person already knows what the person from the PKK wants. And if you're quite successful and make a lot of money, this money can be as much as 10,000 euro just for a year. This doesn't mean that everybody who pays this money really supports the PKK. They just know that if they do not pay, the PKK may either boycott the shop or well, they may attack it.
And it's not like Germany hasn't done enough. Since 1993, German authorities have banned or disbanded 52 PKK-linked associations in Germany. Pictures of Abdullah Öcalan, who's the founder of the PKK, and the YPG, and YPG logos have also been banned in public since March 2017. So it's not like the Germans and the Europeans aren't doing enough, is it, Enes? They are doing something. They've identified the problem. So then...
but still, there are today more than 200 NGOs operating in Germany which are linked to the PKK. So there are 13,000 sympathizers or militants of the PKK in Germany. And the PKK is collecting, according to German intelligence estimate, I think 14 million euros in Germany. So that shows us that the PKK is still active there. And what I see is, I think that the German policy after banning the PKK, there was this undeclared agreement between the PKK and the German state. Unless the PKK carries out terrorist attacks in Germany and kill some person and people, there isn't really any pressure on PKK. And that's the agreement.
Just to add to your point, and there's a report that came out by the German Internal Intelligence Agency, BFW, and it states that the PKK continues to be able and prepared, if necessary, to use violence in Germany, at least in isolated cases, or to tolerate acts of violence carried out by its young adherents. Is there some sort of fear in Germany, and especially in European intelligence circles, that if they go too hard on the PKK, that this might become a bigger problem for them?
I don't think that fear is the main reason, actually. But you always have to have in mind that in Germany it's really difficult to ban an association. If you want to ban an association, it's not enough that you have a picture of Öcalan in the office, but you have to prove that there are either clear financial links or clear organizational links to the PKK. And even though if the Journal Internal Service says, well, an association is close to the PKK, an independent court has to decide if this is the case. And this court might simply say, well, your evidence is not enough. So it's a long process of really banning an association. And this is what it makes really difficult, because the PKK has so many people inside Europe that they can, if one association is banned, they can open another one the next day.
There's a wider context to this as well. What's happening in Germany and Europe with PKK affiliates, there's also the YPG in Syria and PKK offshoots in Iraq. How do you contextualize all of this? On the one hand, these are known prescribed organizations, terrorist groups operating in Syria, but also fundraising in Europe. So how does that connect?
I think we need to see that there is an hypocrisy going on here. I mean, there are also some NGOs or some mosques who are somehow affiliated to Daesh and also some other Islamist terrorist organizations in Europe. And we have seen that some European states have cracked down on these NGOs and the mosques. They have closed down the mosque in France, for instance, or in Germany. And there are, I think, enough laws that can be applied to the PKK as well.
Thank you so much, Enes and Eva, for coming to the studio.